Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter. That is not Connor. Connor is busy this weekend, but luckily Tim could fill in, and we are going to talk about The Exorcist, Season 1, Episode 6. It's called Chapter 6, Star of the Morning. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. So, before we even talk about this episode, obviously I've not spoke to you about this episode, Tim. So I just want to quickly gather your thoughts on the reveal in Episode 5 that Angela is in fact Regan. I'm just curious how you felt about that.
I'm okay with it. I think, at the end of episode 5, I didn't really have, any specific feelings one way or another. It was more like, oh, that's interesting. But I think maybe I was a little worried, like, are they going to try too hard to shoehorn this into the, movie and try to make stuff fit? Because like for the first couple of episodes, I felt like there really wasn't that many hints that it was related to the movies.
Nah, there was one small hint in the first episode where you see the news story of the
Yeah.
original, exorcism. But
And so I was kind of, I was on board with that. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, we have the movies; they're their own thing. This show is gonna be like a completely different take, and that's interesting. And I kind of like that when you reboot, or do like a different version of something. Like, you might as well make it as different as possible. Otherwise, people will be like, oh, well, it's not like the movie, or it's not as good as the movie, or something. But I actually think they did a good job in this episode of relating it to the movies and stuff, but without again having it be like too entrenched in it and that sort of thing. Like I feel like it's still like its own thing. There is this connection, but it's not like too in your face and too obvious, and now they're not like, oh, we have to do this to be like the movie. It's like, no, it's like still like unique in its own way and everything.
yeah, I think as much as it does tie in a lot to the movie in this episode, there's enough other things going on in the episode that are so different and so not what you think of when you think of the movie. We're going to be talking about a cult. We're going to be talking about
Hmm.
these weird like congregations of homeless people, and there's all this
Hmm.
like build up to this bigger story which was never there in the
Hmm.
original movie. The original movie was very much focused on just the girl's possessed, we have to
Hmm.
deal with it, whereas here
Yeah.
it's relating to so much other things. So
It's like it's opening out into the world, while like the first one we get this just very kind of closed view of what's going on. Like if it was a if the movie was a TV show, that would have been like a bottle episode or something, where this it's kind of like just
yeah, yeah,
letting it loose and everything. We kind of see different aspects of how possession could affect like the larger world and that sort
yeah.
of thing.
um so yeah, let's get into the main gist of this episode then. So obviously I mentioned the cult thing. That's probably maybe the biggest thing of this episode is the reveal of Mariah's like company, or I say company, her charity, that whole thing,
Yeah.
the friars
Hmm.
thing. They are the ones, because we see at the start the homeless people who went in, who are possessed, and went
Hmm.
in and killed all the people in that neighborhood and took their
Hmm.
organs. We see them make this powder out of the organs, and we see that
Hmm.
same container. I don't even know, like it's almost like a
Yeah.
goblet with a lid kind of thing
Yeah.
he's got going. We'll call it an urn. Let's just say it's an urn.
Sure. That's
Uh,
good. Yeah.
and he opens it up, and we see it's the priest from the first episode that Tomas ran into when he was looking for Marcus.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's back. He's like a major player in this group. We see the head of the police. We see all these different people who are all like powerful and higher up in the infrastructure of the city, and they're all part of what this seemingly this evil cult that are trying to raise a demon.
Yeah. This is maybe my favorite part of the episode, because it is kind of mysterious and gives you like a little hint of like bigger things that's going on, and just kind of seeing them doing the ritual, and then like the way like Mariah or Maria or whatever is like so like hopeful that she's gonna be the one to get like possessed or chosen by
To
the spirit or whatever.
to the point she's at tears
Yeah.
afterwards when she doesn't get picked. Yeah.
It's actually like a weirdly kind of like sad scene.
Yeah. Even though you're evil, you have conspired in some way in the murder of several people. So you're
Yeah.
you're not innocent at all. You're evil. You're just flat out evil. And I'm hitting things off my desk. Um, By the way, if you wonder why I was smirking a lot during Tim's little monologue there, it's because my cat keeps meowing outside, and I was just starting to laugh because it was so persistent that it was just cracking me up.
I was like, did I say something wrong or like
No,
totally
no, no,
messed
no.
something up?
It was other things going on in my like. It's one of those times where it's not. I don't know if it's that loud or that affecting on the actual recording, but it's really
I
annoying
couldn't
to
hear
me.
it, yeah.
Like I can hear
Yeah.
it off in the distance, and it's really distracting.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
Also,
cool.
with this scene, I also really liked the like weird like speech that the uh priest gives in the beginning where he's talking about like how he's at the farmer's market and he sees this like bunch of apples and the guy tells him he can have whichever one he wants and like he goes right into like the center of the pile and knocks all the other apples over and it was just like everyone's like laughing and but like weird like overly maniacal kind of laughing and it just like oh this definitely kind of sounds
I'm
like something like a supervillain would do or like a group of villains like would laugh about.
I love how that's what it all boils down to. It's he's just knocking over apples at this stall as if
Yeah.
he doesn't care, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm a priest. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I'm evil. I just knock things over." Well, I think it's interesting. I think the fact that it's an apple is very important because obviously the
Yeah.
whole apple or Garden of Eden, that whole story. I think that obviously plays into why we're talking about apples and not anything else.
Yeah, and what's weird is I don't think I've ever thought about this my entire life, but like once he was talking about that, and yeah, you think of the whole, Apple Garden of Eden kind of thing. I'm like, oh, I'm surprised that like, the religion even allows us to eat apples. Like if they're like the cause of like this huge, like downfall or whatever. Like I'm surprised that like it's not like let's this is a forbidden fruit, we should never eat it, like in honor of
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, it's funny because Bennett, of course, Father Bennett, clearly is suspicious of what's going on because he talked the one who's in the wheelchair is giving this speech and he's talking about demons as if they're angels. And Father Bennett brings this up, and it kind of goes back to the previous episodes where they thought that the church might be compromised, and clearly it's compromised. There's a goddamn cult in the middle of the church trying to raise Satan or demons, or like things are going down, and there's priests clearly involved in it. And of course, it's interesting that Maria is seemingly trying to bring Father Tomas into the fold, like. Because the other priest was like, "Oh, I don't see Tomas here," and like they acknowledge that he's going to take some time to win over.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like one of those things where like maybe he's like a pure soul or something where they like are trying to corrupt him or like maybe it's something for them that could be seen as a victory or something if they can bring someone like him over to their side.
Maybe there's just a specific reason they need him. I think it's interesting that of course he's struggling with his whole Jessica like situation where he's like he's conflicted about trying to be pure and not be with a married woman, and also because he's a priest. And
Yeah.
like he's struggling with that. And the funny thing is like I almost wonder like, are they in some way responsible for this? Like, are they dangling her in front of him in some way? Does she know about it? Is she in with them, or is she just unknowing to this? But she, in some way, they have somehow done something to play as if they're pawns in a chessboard. Like, have they somehow thrust her into his lap?
I wasn't thinking about that, but I could definitely see that being the case or somehow related.
Which is frustrating a little bit for me. Not this isn't a complaint about the show. It's frustrating for me because maybe it's my own beliefs that I'm bringing to the table here. But I feel like her thing about this, just try and be happy. I'm kind of on her side. Like I'm like, you know what? It's okay. She's breaking up with her husband, and I know he's a priest and they have rules, and fine. But like, because in the last episode when he the demons sort of like messed with him, and he went to her and ended up having sex. I read that kind of differently than I think it was meant to be read, because to me that was like, oh right, the reason why I am weak with the demon because of this lie is not because doing it is necessarily wrong, but it's because I'm hiding it, it's because I am failing to embrace it. To me, him going and actually just owning it and taking it and, Cat, shut up! My God, I'm going to go and strangle the little bastard in a minute. They're fighting, and I can hear them fighting. Anyway, apologies folks. So yeah, I feel like there's a weird debate going on here where like it is kind of corrupting him in the eyes of the church. But in a weird way, I almost feel like he should like be his own person as well. Like, but that's maybe just my own views on it. If she actually is a pawn, though, if she's actually someone who's working for this league, then well, okay, sure, it's bad, it's evil, and she's seducing him. But at least so far, I don't. Other than that, obviously making some sense, I don't see them hinting at that too much. So obviously, another big aspect of this episode is Chris, Regan's mother, showing back up, and how that like intercedes with the family, and like, you know, how does Kat respond to this? How does Henry respond to this? And one of the things I really loved about this episode, well, there's two things. One, I love the clip of the old TV show like interview. I thought that really set an interesting tone at the start to have this really crappy looking old TV recording, you know, playing. I thought that was good stuff. It actually surprised me they even did that, because I thought, oh, maybe they'll want to link it to the movie enough that they don't want to show different actors playing them around those ages. But nah, they went for it, and that's fine. But I thought it set the tone quite well. But the thing I really loved about all this in this episode is I like that it got Regan into some kind of like trouble with multiple people. I love that Henry, you know, flat out said, "I'm your husband, and you didn't tell me this." Even when stuff started happening to Casey, you didn't tell me this. You kept this from me. I like that there was consequences, and not only with him, but also with Father Marcus. Like, Marcus is like, look, two guys in that ambulance are dead, and quite frankly, it's your fault, because you went, you let us go in there to do this exorcism without all the information. You didn't tell us that you were possessed as a kid. You didn't tell us, you know, that this had happened to you, and that it may be connected. You know, I don't think the salesman's flat out said he's Pazuzu, but the fact that she had that nightmare of the salesman calling her.
Yeah, no, definitely.
You know,
and yeah, I mean, like any like little bit of information, I'm sure would have helped. Like, it's like obviously understandable that, you know, she'd want to put like something that like behind her and, you know, leave it in the past or whatever. But it's such a big, you know, part of your life if you have, you know, like someone that
I get it. Like, I completely get why she'd put it behind her, especially in the TV interviews. You know, the guy even says, how are you going to, like, as soon as you tell someone your name, they're going to be like, oh, it's the demon girl. Like, I get her putting it behind her, but as soon as stuff starts happening to Casey, as soon as she thinks this might be a thing again, that is the moment where she at least tells her husband.
Definitely, yeah.
That is the moment. So he was right to be mad. I'm glad he was mad. I'm glad that Marcus was mad, because again, they're both completely just.
Yeah.
So, no, it was good.
Yeah, and then there's a nice scene too with Chris and the is it the other daughter, Kat? I thought that was like a kind of like a nice way of, you know, kind of like giving some information from the movie and stuff, like them kind of sitting down having like a little like heart to heart kind of chat about it.
Yeah, it was a scene that had a lot of purposes, because I think, like you say, it gave us some exposition from the movie that if you haven't seen the movie, which some people wouldn't have, you know, people will be watching this, you know, without that, it'll give them the information, but it set up where her character is now as well, which is good, and her guilt, also good. But I think what it also did for Kat is that she has been kind of hostile to her mother the entire show so far. Like, she's been very judgmental of her. So hearing her stick up for her mother and, like, saying, no, this is your fault. You did this to her. Like, you're blaming her. It's not her fault. Like, having her do that was actually kind of a big character moment for Kat, I felt.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, yeah, obviously there's other parts of the episode is that the fact that they've got, like, a manhunt. Well, not a manhunt, per se, but they've got flyers going out. They're trying to look for Casey. The church is helping. And there's, like, you know, again, the police, you know, the head of the police that we've seen in the cult is there, and he even has that line where he says he's a Catholic, and it's kind of hinting at, you know, the future stuff. But that's all building up to the episode, and they do that the press conference where they're talking about it, and I really like that scene as well, because we had the women came out and talked about the murders and how this is getting all this attention, but the murders, and she specifically mentions that, you know, that it was all coloured people who get killed. You know, and how they're not getting this attention. They're not being, you know, you know, whatever. You know, getting the police presence, the manhunts, you know, They're feeling
Yeah,
ignored.
more worried about like one missing white girl as opposed to like nine dead, colored individuals. Like,
Yeah.
and I thought that was interesting. Like, it gave it kind of like a very like real world tone to it because
It did. It connects it to the real world. But do you know what I actually really like about it and how it kind of blindsides you? Is
what's that?
because it's a TV show that I don't think we were even like thinking about it like this until she said it. Because for us, Casey's our main character, so of course,
Hmm.
as a TV show, we're spending time focusing on her.
Right.
You know, those murders are like they're an important plot point, but they're not
Hmm.
the focal point of the show. So for us, it makes
Yeah.
sense that we're focusing on Casey. So it almost makes the viewer feel a little bit guilty because
Yeah.
you're kind of right. We are focusing more on her than we are these other people. I suppose the one sticking point I suppose you would say that I think is valid is that Casey's still alive and can still be saved.
True. Yeah.
So I think that's a valid point as well. But
Hmm.
I'm going to kill that cat. And of course, Marcus goes looking for Casey in places where the police and whoever might not, because he's like recognizing signs. Tomas hears about the dogs and tells him, and he ends up finding her. And we get that incredibly creepy scene in the sort of the underpass, the sort of tunnel, yeah,
Yeah.
with the homeless people, which leads to Casey like crawling out and going to the water, and we get what is essentially a a biblical baptism as he's like dunking her head in the ocean,
Yeah.
saying all of his exorcism dialogue.
Yeah. I like this whole like little uh bit of ending at the end. Yeah, like the tunnel scene was pretty creepy. Actually kind of reminded me a lot of this movie Cropsy. I don't know if you've seen that, but it was like a documentary about this like legend. I think it was like in upstate New York or around that area, but they had like these mental hospitals that closed down, and basically like all the patients in there were just kind of like let loose, and they had like these underground tunnels that connected the hospitals to other sections of it, and then kind of like a lot of the patients just ended up living in these underground tunnels. So kind of gave me like a weird like creepy kind of vibe like that, but that was cool. And then seeing her do that kind of like upside down crab walk kind of thing felt reminiscent of that, like if you've seen that deleted scene from the first movie where she like crab walks down the stairs.
Yeah, so it's not a very good deleted scene, but it is
No.
there. Yeah.
And then he finds her, and she's like at first I was a little angry because I thought she was like eating a dog or something, but it just turned out to be a stork, which isn't as bad. But
It's not as bad. That's okay in Tim's books. No, what Joe I liked about it as well is I was a little bit worried that she was just going to be cured at the end, and she does kind of have a moment where she comes out of it, but she's like, he's coming back, like help me. It's like a moment of like the demon
Yeah.
subsided for a moment, just long enough for her to plead for help, and it leaves us in a very nice sort of cliffhanger where it's kind of both hopeful and both like terrifying at the same time. It's hopeful because that's a sign that she can maybe still be reached because we actually heard her real voice, but it's on the other side. It's also she's terrified, she's scared. It makes her even more in need of help because we know how like terrified she is inside there, and
yeah.
so
Yeah, it was good. It doesn't give you a sense that like, well, everything's all better now. It's like it seems like there's still like a lot of work to do, but yeah, like you said, like there is like a little bit of hope that at least something can be done.
yeah. Other little scene that I do want to point out is I like the tension of the family going to the morgue because they think they might have found Casey.
Oh, right.
And just the scenes of them in the sitting room waiting to
Yeah.
hear the news. I thought that was pretty well handled. I thought that was suitably kind of quiet and like it's almost whenever I talk about this, it always reminds me of the episode of Buffy called The Body, where
Yes.
which I won't spoil. If you've not seen Buffy, I won't spoil why or whatever. But let's just say someone has died, and it deals with the sort of all the things that you have to do after someone's died, and it captures the boredom almost of
Yeah.
it. But it's like a sort of really tense boredom. and I feel like this kind of was hitting on those notes. Not to the same extent. I'm not saying this one scene was like up to the same standards as that episode of Buffy, but it was hitting on a similar vibe for me. I was feeling the same kind of feeling from it.
Yeah, I can get that comparison. I like how they like reveal the body. It felt like kind of like respectful. Like, it wasn't like I feel like a lot of times, you just see someone just like completely just pull back, like the sheet or whatever, and you see like the full body. This was just, it was very slow. They kind of like slowly peel it back, and then you just see kind of a glimpse of the head and the shoulder, which kind of made it feel like, oh, there's like a little more respect going on here. It's not like, hey, let's show you something gruesome for the sake of it, and then they show this like crazy dead body.
And it had a purpose as well, because it built the tension of, is it her? Because like the parents see her, like they both see her, but we don't. So when they came back out into the waiting room, we are with them. We're with Tomas and Chris and Kat. We're waiting to hear, like, was it her? We know it's a blonde girl. Like, we see enough to realise why they think it might be her, because it is a blonde girl, presumably about the same age, But we don't get to see her face, and then so they come out and it relieves the tension. We feel the same relief as those characters, so it's actually really well done in a staging and direction level. Like, it puts you in those shoes. So it's very good. And just the one last we forgot to mention this when we talked about the cult scene. After the police, the head of the police, I think it's the chief, or I can't remember his exact job title, but he when he gets possessed or the thing goes in him, he has this creepy like double iris eye thing going on, which was really weird but suitably disturbing. So props, look good.
Yeah, I like that everyone kind of like laughed at it, like.
Yeah. That's The Exorcist, episode 6. So let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. Thank you very much for watching, guys. We will see you next time.